Michael and Lorenzo. Hello, guys. Welcome, welcome. Nice to see you. Do us a favor and let us know what your name is and where you're from.
Oh yeah, I got the mics, that makes sense. So I'm Michael, what am I, 24 now? I'm from the beautiful progressive utopia of Canberra, a few hours from here. And what about me?
Are they from Canberra or do they like oppressive utopias? I couldn't tell.
I got no idea actually. And I've just finished university, thankfully it's over, and now I work doing, I don't know what, don't ask me, it's like consulting, it's kind of vague. And I'm engaged to be married to a very beautiful woman, I think so, in about a month. So
awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
me.
Hi, I'm Lorenzo. I'm 23. I'm almost done with university. I'm at the University of New South Wales. And over there, I study mechanical engineering and philosophy, right? So that's what I do. I'm almost done. Back when, I'm not doing this anymore, but I worked as a university ambassador. So I did outreach, kind of going to students out in Western Sydney, telling them basically about, their opportunity to go to uni, basically. So I have kind of an in, and a way into kind of learning into the inner workings of UNSW.
Fantastic. And so am I right in thinking you have a question or something?
Yes, you would be right there.
You go over there.
So,
And why are you together?
So apparently
it's not what it looks like.
The powers from heaven decided that apparently our topics were quite similar.
Ah, I see.
So I'll let him start first because he can do that, and I'll kind of riff off of what he says.
All right. So, at risk of sounding like one of those rigid trads, my question is basically, I don't think I'm alone in feeling this, but I feel like in the church, we've kind of thrown away a lot of our traditions that are really good. Like if you think of any church built after 1975, I don't know, it doesn't look very nice. Or whether that's music or even in liturgy or whatever the case may be. And just wondering what you guys think, kind of on a practical level, how as young lay people, we can, do our little bit to try to build up our own, like small scale parishes, communities, and stuff like that. Is that even our job to do? I don't know. I've honestly got no idea. That's why I'm asking.
Right. And on my end, I guess my question is kind of the traditional, like asking about kind of bring back the traditional, but I guess of a more like intellectual bent, kind of within the university. See, I mentioned before that that I majored in philosophy, so I'm really, really interested in that stuff. And kind of dialoguing with people at university, they're thirsty for kind of looking for things which are robust, like intellectually and true, right? And religion to them seems kind of just like a club, like a society to join, because it doesn't seem, you can't take it seriously. But when you present them with that, when you present them even the hint of like the full edifice of like the intellectual tradition, especially the stuff as you find in someone like Thomas Aquinas or Aristotle or the scholastics, right? If they're not convinced, they're at the very least shaken out of kind of their complacency, right? And so my question on my end is, right, how best can we articulate that the classical philosophical tradition, the stuff that undergirds the teaching of the church, right, and present it in a way that can evangelize people at universities today?
Yeah, so two questions. One has more to do with tradition, the other has more to do with the intellectual tradition. Yeah, we just moved into a house in Steubenville 3 years ago, and there was shag carpet everywhere. There was white shag carpet in the dining room. And we ripped it up, and first we cut into it, and we realized there's beautiful hardwood floors under there. And my wife said, "Who would do this?" I said, "It's the same people who invented liturgical abuse. I don't know why they did it. This was beautiful. We didn't need this." But yeah, I think there is this real desire on the part of young people. Like, we don't want to be pandered to. We don't want to be patronized. We want somewhere to go and kiss the earth. Like, I want to go and fall on my knees. I want my hunger for God to be treated with seriousness, So I think it's a shame when maybe it's the case that certain people or churches think what they have to do is entertain us. It's sort of like what you said earlier. If he comes to you and learns pleasure immediately from the woman or the man, then maybe that's what he'll learn to keep coming back to. If you think that your job as a priest or as a church is to entertain, and that's how you're bringing them in, well, you better keep doing that. But the point of the church is to proclaim, repent and believe the gospel. And it might not be as initially attractive, but it is the way to salvation.
Yeah, and I think that one of the ways this really needs to be reflected in the church moving forward is in our architecture. I had heard of someone describing modern Catholic architecture, and he said it's actually a burp in the history of architecture. There's no contribution that we're offering right now. And if you look at the technology that we had right now, if we had the piety of like the 14th century and they gave them our technology, what they could build, I mean, the Duomo in Milan took 700 years to build that thing. And what comes to mind for me is I spoke at a Jesuit high school in Tampa, Florida years ago. Now, a lot of the Jesuit schools, unfortunately, don't have the best reputation for orthodoxy and fidelity, but this school does. It is everything a Jesuit school could possibly be.
It's the old boys one, right?
Tampa Jesuit, yeah, all boys school. And so the priest took me around the church at the time they had back then, which was built in the 1970s, brick and mortar, church in the round, felt banners hanging all over the place. And, he said, yeah, we're going to tear it down. But he said, let me just show you something. He said, you see the stained glass window here? He said, when the construction workers got the blueprints for the windows to put the pieces together in the glass, they lost the blueprint for this window. And so they just kind of slapped up the glass wherever they wanted. And he said, it's actually an image of the risen Christ as a lamb. And if you look closely, you can see a hoof over here. You can see an ear over here. There's this over there. And he said, but you know what? The rest of the church is so ugly, nobody's even noticed that there's something wrong with it. And they took a wrecking ball to the entire church, just razed it to the ground, and have built up this incredibly beautiful church in its place. And what this school is doing right now, they are bringing in, at the Easter Vigil, on average, more than 20 of the students to baptism per year, of kids who came into this high school as nothing, and then by Easter, they're in the waters of baptism. And it's just because they're giving them what is true and what is good and is beautiful, and this is what we're created to give and receive.
And I think that's what we're starting to see in Sydney. For example, how many of you are in RCIA? Well, what do you call it?
It is RCIA.
RCIA.
Are there any of you in RCIA?
Yep,
No, well, that fell flat, didn't it? I was
There's
really
one there,
expecting quite a cheer, but I've met a ton of people that have come up to me and have said they're coming into the church. I guess they're not here, but yeah. But I guess to your question has to do with particularly like what can I do? I think one thing you can do, if I were a single man, I would perhaps have more dedication to my local parish, and I would praise my priest to no end whenever I felt like he did something courageous for which he would get blowback from the congregation.
Yep. I try.
Sorry.
I just said I try.
Yeah, but as a married man with children, I don't have time. Like, I'm not going to bring my kids to this parish because it's my local parish if I think it's garish and if they play the City of God song. I'm not doing it. I would rather drive an hour to find somewhere where we can find reverence. Intellectual tradition. Not everybody needs to understand, Aquinas's 5 proofs for God's existence, but some people do, and it's impressive when they do. Dr. Ed Fazer obviously has done a great job understanding and articulating the 5 ways, and I think you're right. I think that atheists and skeptics are impressed when we refuse to use bad or even mediocre arguments for God's existence, when we can do what Thomas Aquinas does and kind of reiterate their objections to the Catholic faith better than they can, which is what he so often does in the Summa and elsewhere, and then give people sort of substantive answers to their questions, even if those substantive answers go above their head or are too difficult to figure out. We absolutely need to be doing that.
Yeah, that's right. One last thing I'll say about that is that, I think Archbishop Fisher talked about that kind of the synodal way, right, where you're walking along with the person, right? Part of that is when you do kind of present it, and I know this from experience, when I articulate kind of, Aristotelian philosophy to people, it flies over their heads. But, you establish something like I do philosophy group over at UNSW, right? Where I kind of teach people how, like the basics of classical philosophy, right? And taking them through the entire year, they will start to understand it. And once they do understand it, they'll realize that it makes sense. The Catholic faith makes sense and is impressive.
Yeah, I think it was Bishop Barron who said that when he was in high school, a priest laid out the 5 ways, and it was something rather simple. And I think he said, I didn't really fully comprehend it, but I knew it existed. Like I knew there was an intellectual explanation or underpinnings of the faith, even if I couldn't fully understand it right away, which is really important for people to understand. Well, last word?
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking as you were talking, it's like from my perspective, it's very easy to be discouraged about, things in the church. I'm not like talking about the things that we don't need to worry about that are like far away, but even like in your own parish. But I guess just trying to accept that it's not actually going to be perfect. And I think I heard you say this once. It was that on one of your podcasts. It was like, I don't actually deserve a good liturgy or beautiful things like that. I actually deserve hell, which is a happy thought.
Yeah, I mean, you think of your family, like all of us have families of one sort or another, and there's odd people, and there's odd relationships, and there's like tender things that you shouldn't talk about with so-and-so, and parishes are just an extension of that, and so we should expect to see those odd and awkward things, but we don't want to abandon the church like we wouldn't want to abandon our family just because of the awkwardness or the things that make us cringe. All right. God bless you both.
All right, thank you, fellas. Thanks, guys.